Thank you. We have to go now to Ms. Stubbs for 5 minutes.
You just said we again.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for intervention earlier. Appreciate your rebuke of me. I do just want to clarify, of course.
We call rebuking you.
Okay, yes, and you are the most polite and diplomatic ever. I just do want to clarify that, of course, what I said to our colleague MP Collins is that every single question she's asking these industry representatives, she should actually be asking her partners in the Liberal government, because they are the ones who are in negotiations with the big multinationals on every
Mr. Chair, point of order.
About. Second of all,
what's the point of order?
Well, Mrs. Stubbs is referring to my questions about the oil and gas CEOs. I was asking about their lobbying of this government. I think those questions are completely appropriate.
I don't think it's a point of order, so we'll resume.
Yes, what I was clarifying was when you asserted that Conservatives were there to help CEOs. My point is that it's actually your coalition partners who are in negotiations with the multinationals. You should ask them. And second of all, of course, the problem is here, I think we can all see, this is not a good faith, evidence-based, objective attempt to get facts. You can see the absolute disconnect on reality. You can see the absolute lack of knowledge on the different kind of resources, on the details, the technical details, and the really important distinctions between all the kinds of energy resources that Canada is blessed with in order to provide our own energy self-sufficiency and help lower emissions globally. You can now see the spectacle where apparently we all sit here and pretend that emissions don't have borders, or that there are borders that stop emissions. You can now see that there are proponents who are constantly talking about life cycle analysis and cumulative effects, all of which we would agree, but they don't apply those standards to any other sector or any other product. Their policies, their objectives are absolutely to shut your companies down, to shut down your operations. The Prime Minister said it, and they've shown in every single way over 9.5 years on policy, on legislation, and on messages that is their intention, and that is their deliberate intention. My quick question on the emissions cap: how many countries in the world have an oil and gas emissions cap? Quickly, to the 3 upstream oil sands CEOs.
None that I'm aware of.
Correct. That's it. I don't need to go to the answer is 0. The reason is, of course, because of this issue around competitiveness, because there's no developed country in their right mind, depending on energy development and resources, who would implement that policy on themselves. I thank our Liberal colleagues for making it clear that the emissions cap is an intended production cap, which is provincial jurisdiction and is designed to kill jobs, businesses, and all of the work of Indigenous communities and Metis settlements, almost 30 that between my colleague and I, we represent in the communities where these operations are, who are among the for decades, the highest capacity, the wealthiest First Nations and Métis settlements in the entire country, who have been funding their own source revenue for their own communities out of their energy operations, and are absolutely going to be crushed, including all of the workers and all of the people that we represent, by the collusion between anti-energy activists, politicians, public policymakers, and frankly, if it is the case, any kind of rent-seeking oligopoly collusion between big government and big corporations. I would say this: there cannot be a shadow of a doubt if you actually listen to the words of our leader, Pierre Poilievre. He said corporatist Canada will not have a free ride with Conservatives. He said, he has said, if there continues to be footsie with anti-resource, anti-private sector, anti-energy activists, politicians, and public policy, we will always get that kind of result. And it's very clear after 9.5 years. This is how stark the issue is. Here's the truth. In 2014, there was over $5 billion more investment in Canada from the U.S. than from Canada to the U.S. Here's the reality after 9.5 years, in 2022, there was over $460 billion more investment in the U.S. from Canada than in Canada from the U.S. It is very clear that this anti-energy, anti-resource, anti-private sector, anti-capitalist, top-down central planning, economic command and control agenda, that is what this is all about. The consequences are catastrophic for the public interest of Canadians. We are here to fight for them, to represent them, not to be accountable to CEOs or to big companies. That's what Conservatives are fighting for, because we represent the people and the communities and the First Nations and the Métis people and the 90% of oil and gas companies in Canada that have fewer than 100 employees, because they're all small businesses. And you know what they all depend on? They all depend on the project and the businesses from your companies, and that's the truth about how all of this
Okay, we'll have to go to
works.
Mr. Weiler now.
Please make sure that you
Ms.
submit
Stubbs,
written follow-ups on every
we
question
have to
you've
go
been
to
asked
Mr.
and to
Weiler.
correct any facts you need to.